Allora, io vorrei che salutassimo Simon Vumbaca, collegato con noi dal Regno Unito, grazie mille.
Grazie. Yes, thank you, and thank you everybody, and for having stayed this long today on a Friday afternoon. It's always challenging. Cyber presence in businesses is a very interesting phenomenon when it comes to the way we relate to it as humans, as individuals. I would start by saying that, of course, it is the land of opportunities. Anything we do in business is to keep busy and ideally make a profit. As such, we always try to look for an edge, an advantage in what we're doing. So more and more, this cyber presence allows for more revenue generation and more opportunities, particularly if we consider that businesses are based on models. Is how much you can repeat the business model allows you to be predictable in your result and outcomes. So business needs to be process-driven, which is fantastic. And historically, we have been using information. Information was king. And in recent years, we have been talking, recent 20 years, I would say, we have looked at the shift from information to data-driven information. In other words, we look at the data more than context. And in turn, and this is a big shift, and I will explain why in a minute, in turn, this has brought a data-centric approach to business. Now, this is massively different than a company using cyber tools to acquire information. A data-driven company uses information, such as CRM, for example, to qualify what would be a predictable best outcome. A data-centric information will only enter and commence something that the data has confirmed to be right for the purpose of the achievement. Now, it sounds like a small shift of perception, but actually it's a fundamental one. If we add the complexity of quantum computing, so up to 2 years ago, we were all talking about AI, artificial intelligence, this big demon, which actually is not a demon at all, it's just a computing power. But if we now look at quantum computing, we are seeing that the shift from data-driven to data-centric becomes even more important. And I promise I will get to why it's important to us as human, as individual, part of this reality, okay? But what is important to understand in that shift is that artificial intelligence models are a compilation of data. Quantum models, quantum computing models, because of the ability to process variables, actually will present a very different business model, that it will be far more powerful to follow if you sit on a boardroom and you virtually have a guaranteed number of outcomes from that model. So that shift means that we as individuals interacting with such technology are now moving from a position from decision makers to implementation tools. Okay? I feel like I'm on a roller coaster going up and down with the camera, but I hope it's okay. I hope you guys see me straight. So, am I talking too fast or are we all okay for now?
Okay.
Hello? Okay, good. So, this has created a secondary problem. A data-centric approach to society also means that we interact with the data differently according to the context we live into, okay? Technology, by definition, and the last 5 years have evidenced that, is finite by nature. It has a beginning and an end. And actually, what we love about technology is that it progresses very fast. We love that. We love that tomorrow technology is here today. We feel like we are ahead of everybody else. We feel empowered as human beings. But actually, the fast adoption of new technologies, it's also what is creating, to us as humans, one of the biggest problems, which is dissociation. I'm not a therapist, so not in the therapeutical point of view, right? But dissociation between our perception of where we are and what we do. In other words, if I am an expert on something that becomes obsolete within 2-3 years, the impact I might have is limited. And by definition, I become obsolete. And this starts to reflect on how individuals relating to these constant evolving technologies start to have a big set of questions in their own minds. In the last 10 years, we have seen how mental health in businesses has created increased concerns. What is the root of that mental health? We are seeing things that we have never seen before, such as burnout. What is a burnout? Before, you used to go on holiday and it was okay. Your burnout was gone, right? Now, a burnout is so profound in its own characterization that it's the fundamental interaction between us and what we do that is affected. And then at board level, which is where normally I interact with, we have a lot of conversation about imposter syndromes. A lot of management that acquire good results through technologies get to the boardroom and they feel that they are an imposter because they know that the reason they are there is thanks to a positive market dictated by data, not necessarily their abilities. So that's the panorama where at the same time, and this is one of the beautiful things, don't get me wrong, I belong to the generation, like I believe most of you, we are the generation where the first computer were developed. We used to play Pac-Man, I used to play Space Invaders, we love those kind of things, right? So for us, that freedom that technology has brought was fantastic. So the impact on us as human, both within the business context and outside of our business lives, has increased massively. Basically, these new territories that we just discussed, the new interactions between personal interest and personal outcome, the way we see it, and as one thing is clear, as contemplationist, I have the luxury to press pause. Part of what I do as contemplationist is to take time. I have the gift of time, or I decided to take time to reflect on things, to analyze things differently. And what we noticed that one of the main impact is that permanent conflict between using technology to progress ourselves and using technology that renders us obsolete in certain part of what we do. So that internal conflict is developing in a way that we were not aware of before. So when we press pause and we look what could be the projected outcome of that reality or that truth, well, if you remember, the business model was a meritocracy-based business model. We need to be good to do things, right? And we said that changes with information data-centric, where now you are the result of the data quality you are gathering as a company. So as individual, there is a concept that has been developed by not only me, but by many other people, which is called data slavery. And this is something that is very, very, very important to understand. It is not yet defined as uniformity yet, but there's different degree of data slavery that we are seeing today. My concern as contemplationist is not on the people attending this conference, which we have the benefit of our gray hair, in my case, and elegant hair for the ladies, but we have the benefit of experience. It's for the newer generations, because their adoption of a digital platform dictates the nature of their interactions. In other words, data slavery will also highlight what could be loosely called data racism. If I am on YouTube and I'm not on TikTok, the way and the rules that will apply to me will be different. My beliefs will be filtered not by a universal truth or a set of rules society has accepted, by a private company own commercial interest. And this is a fundamental shift, because today's kids are tomorrow's employees, or maybe not, or tomorrow geniuses, tomorrow bosses, tomorrow philosophers. So we need to understand that if you grow up with that approach to platforms, with the data slavery approach and the data discrimination approach, you are creating a segregation from the very self and the ego. So in other words, and this is where the philosophical aspect comes in even more, in my opinion, we are creating dissociated personalities. In other words, I am Simon talking to you as contemplationist, which is very different than the Simon that takes the dog in the beach for a walk, and that is very different than the Simon that will interact in social media. In my case, I'm very lucky. I'm the same guy because I'm crazy, right? But for many other people who don't have that luxury, it's very difficult. So we have started dissociating and create different identities according to where we interact and how we interact, according to what social platform we're interacting with. And this is the big question mark that we need to address. It's our job to address, collectively, of course, to try to create a balanced outcome. So I'm no technician, I'm not a therapist, I'm just a guy who likes to have thought-provoking ideas. So when I sit down with people, what I've noticed is a dissociation between, and this is the first level of manifestation, right? Actions and purpose. Right? If your action match your purpose, then there's already a better level of coherence and acceptance of the self. But if your actions are sitting within your purpose, and your purpose is sitting within your values, which is a big name these days, values is scary for everybody, right? What are the values? You are in Italy, you have a strong historical presence of values, but other modern societies do not have predisposed values, particularly if you consider the shift from a punitive society to what we now call an achievement society. Conversation for another day, but a very fascinating conversation. So what we're noticing is that those values would depend on each one of us. And we have seen this in recent worldwide elections, worldwide war responses. Okay, it's not my job to do politics. I hate politics. I don't understand politics. But what is certainly important is to see how people react to those concepts. Okay, and part of that reaction that was very, very, very interesting to observe is how we have become polarized. In other words, if my values sit within my understanding of truth, I cannot accept in an achievement society that someone else can say the opposite. So we, in the name of openness, of achievement, we are creating what is called, effectively, a conflict that would be very difficult to resolve, because nobody else can impose on us if the achievement has worked. It's self-imposed achievement. Right? So if we do not match that within that reality that we have created for ourselves, I cannot accept that you have created your own reality or your own truth. And this is why increasingly even very intelligent people seems to be very polarized against each other. Now, of course, this is not entirely the fault of technology, but it's in fact not at all the fault of technology. Technology is just one of the many reasons we have accelerated, and this is my observation anyway, this path. So what I try to do as a contemplationist when we have guided reflections is to realign the purpose-driven vision and actions with one's universal truth. So at least we try to avoid this permanent conflict and polarization.